When I'm running, it's like my brain seems to work better. I have more hope when I'm running than when I'm sitting in a chair or laying in a bed. I just come alive.
On your mark. Get set. Go.
I'm going to have Kathy Powers come over here because her story is amazing. You've got to hear it.
In April is when I officially ran. I was kind of walking fast, and I signed up to do it's a Galloway program where you walk 10 minutes and then you jog 1 minute. And so I started doing that to get ready to be able to run a 10K in April. So I was kind of a little bit trying to jog, I don't know, maybe a month or so. And then I went and switched my name from the 10K. I switched it right before to the half marathon. When I got to Gatlinburg, I had never thought about all the way. It's in the mountains. So as soon as I got out of the start and behind, where I'd never seen before, it was straight up. So just within the first, 100 feet, I was already on the inside starting to cry, oh my God, what have I got myself into? I thought about going off the side, not dying, but hiding. And maybe just letting the crowd pass me and just, calling it a day. But I had Bryce's name on, I had a bib on, and I just, oh my God, I just thought, I'll just go a little bit. I'll just see how far I can go. And I remember thinking, I can't even breathe. Going up, up, up. And then when I got to the top, I started jogging down. And it's hard running down a hill. I didn't know that was a thing. I was thinking, oh, easier. No, I don't know how I stayed standing. And so basically that's what I did. I walked up the hills, jogged down the hills. And then when I got done, my hands were so swollen. They looked like sausages, my fingers. I had to take my ring off, I had to take my watch off. I thought actually that maybe I was gonna have a heart attack. I didn't know what was happening. And I was like, I'm gonna die trying. I gotta do this. And I just had peace. And when I finally made it to the end, I just went and sat down on the ground. And I was just sitting there, and I couldn't believe it. And I was so proud. But then I heard them calling my name, Kathy Powers. And I joke about it. I say I thought it was God, literally. I couldn't even think right. And I just remember thinking, saying my name, oh my God, I'm looking at my hands. And then I heard it again, Kathy Powers. And it was a male's voice. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, it's happening. And then someone's like, hey, Kathy Powers, they're calling you to the stage. And I won first place. And I started crying like I won an Academy Award, bawling, makeup everywhere, and I didn't care. I was so proud. I thought I had a gift. I bragged and got another opportunity to run with the USO because I have a gift. And then halfway through that training, that 6 months of training, realized I was the only one in my age range. That's why I won. And by then it was too late. I'd already thought I had a gift. I started crying a lot, scared that I wasn't going to be good enough. That kid comes right back, you know, whenever I start doubting and, oh, they're going to find me out, I'm not good enough. And he said, no, you're going to go and you're going to do it. Just do your best. And it doesn't matter. And if you get kicked off, it's okay. You know, just hold your head up anyway. But I made it. I remember saying to my husband, how long do you think I have to run? Like how many years till I'm a real runner? And he said, you are a real runner. I'm like, no, I'm not that kind, like you feel sorry for me kind, but like a real runner. He said, you are a runner. I never really thought I'd be anything, like except a mom, a good mom. I felt like I was a great mom. And all of a sudden it's like, I have all these options. Like I could be something else good in life too. That kind of like changed my life. Okay, so my goal is to run 1,000 miles within all 50 states. It started actually on New Year's Eve, 2018. I said to my husband, I'm thinking about doing something for our veterans. If I go to the Veterans Park tomorrow and I run a 10K, which is 6.2 miles, can I get online? Like, is that okay with you? Because he works, he's the one with the job. That's why I'm asking his permission. Is it okay if I sponsor 6 wreaths for Wreaths Across America to be laid in Arlington? And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like, all right. So he went out in his wood shop and he was working. And I went out with my camera and I said, and I had a wreath. And I said, will you take my picture in the woods? And he's like, okay. So I had made this little sign that said, I'm running for wreaths. I just made it up. And later that day, I got an email from Wreaths Across America asking me if I would like to be interviewed on their radio program. And I had mentioned to them what I wanted to do. And they said, you know, why don't you come up here in March and we'll talk about it, come up to headquarters. And I said, oh, I can't wait until then. I have to go now. I have to start. I already ran the half marathon. I need to keep going. And they kind of just laughed. So I posted on my Facebook that I was thinking of doing something patriotic this year. And if I did, and I came to their state, could I maybe stay a night or two for free? And I had been talking to my husband about it. Like, wouldn't it be great about if this could happen? Or wouldn't it be great if I could go to all 50 states? Or wouldn't it be great? And he never shut it down. Well, very quickly, I had a couple hundred responses of offering me places to stay for free. So then he was out in his wood shop and I went and got a big map and came home with a map, and I was on that table and trying to write little sticky notes. And well, later he took my map out to his wood shop and he built me a frame around it. And he came and he hung it up right in our living room. And then I went up in Maine in March and they surprised me and gave me car keys and a gas card and said, you know, they were proud of me and they wanted to help me do it. All the veterans that I've met along the way, the few that have asked, you working for them? How much money you making? 0. I'm doing this because I love you. It's changed people's lives, I could tell. My last run will be right up to the gates of Arlington. You cannot run inside Arlington National Cemetery. So I will run and then I will place the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Okay, can you just explain what today is?
Today is National Wreaths Across America Day, and today is the day we say their names all across the United States. We lay the wreaths. So for me, it's also, you know, Bryce is buried here, and I set out to run 1,000 miles this year within all 50 states, and I did that. I've run 1,003 miles. I hit all 50 states and the Navajo Nation in Puerto Rico and 6 countries, and I raised 11,215 wreath sponsorships for Arlington today, and I can't wait to see my son and tell him. I hope he's proud.
Bryce was a super fun person. Like if you would meet him, he would be the guy that you'd want to be your friend. He always talked about joining the military since being young. But when he was in high school, when he went to ROTC in his freshman year, that's when he just would talk about it like all the time. And so he signed up when he was 17. He did the delayed entry where you go sign all the paperwork and then they know the next year you'll go. And I was just super proud of him. I don't know why. I never worried about something bad happening to him. I never was that mom thinking, oh, it's not safe. And I was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. That's so cool. Great. You know, I just never in a million years thought anything bad would happen. Just my brain didn't go that way. I saw the uniform and I saw him turning out good and having discipline, and really I thought about it as a safe thing. He went to Lackland Air Force Base. That's where they all go in the Air Force nowadays, and that's in Texas. And so he went there in August and he graduated in October, and they don't put up with anything there, you know. He was sent to Shepherd Air Force Base, which is in Wichita Falls, Texas, to ammo school. So that's where he went next. And he was there, let's see, he graduated in October and he came home at Christmas. He called us and said, I'm going to get shipped overseas. I volunteered to go to Korea. And unless I have a plane ticket today, I can't come home unless you just drove and picked me up by tomorrow. And I left and I drove all the way to Texas. I mean, that's half of the United States. And I finally made it to him and picked him up, and then we drove back home. But I was so worried that I might not get to see him. So that was the last time that we were all together as a family. He got to come home and it was super awesome to have him home. We went and hung out with friends, and we did a lot of fun family stuff. And I remember wanted to like sleep and just be like a normal human being with no responsibilities for a couple weeks. Yeah, so we came home for 2 weeks, and then he went to Osan, South Korea. He was there for a year, February to February. Then after a year there, he went to Misawa, Japan. Please excuse the mess. So this is where Bryce's box is, behind there. This is before I ever even started this journey. When I went to before I went to Reefs Across America, I had taken a picture of Arlington when I visited Bryce with all the graves all had a wreath, and my friend painted this. So who knew that this was going to mean so much to me? We were just laying in bed, sound asleep, early on Saturday morning, the 13th of October, and the phone rang, and I picked up the phone and I heard a voice asking me if I was Kathy Powers, and saying that your son has been in an accident and basically I remember hearing he's on a respirator and they don't think he was going to make it through the night. And I just remember screaming. I remember just like none of it making sense, and then just screaming. I remember flying to Japan. When I landed, then I got more details. Bryce was driving, there was another airman in the car, and they were both in comas, and they were both on ventilators. Even to this day, they don't even really know exactly what happened. They just know that there wasn't like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. And one of the medics said, he's a young American, he's fine, he's probably drunk or something. And they left Bryce and they took her. He looked okay, Even when I saw him, he looked like he was sleeping. He just looked beautiful. Bryce didn't get any oxygen. He stopped breathing soon after. And so Bryce went a long time with no oxygen. Nobody gave him CPR. They didn't do any of that. The accident happened October 13th. In November, they flew him, me too, on the plane with him. He was still in a coma, and they flew him to Okinawa, and then the plane broke down, so we had to wait for a different plane, and then they flew him to Hawaii. So it was like a month later, they did brain surgery, but he still didn't wake up. And Dad's at home this whole time, and I'm staying with Bryce. They're trying to figure out, at home, how's Bryce? And I'm writing on Facebook, and I'm not communicating with family. I'm not, Jim would call and say, well, how was my son? What's happening? And I'd say, well, didn't you read my Facebook? He said, I don't want to read your damn Facebook. Tell me how my son is. And it was just like the fractured state of my mind. I could type to a bunch of strangers and I wouldn't even pick my phone up. And I'd say, well, I'm in ICU. I can't have my phone on. I just checked out. And on Thanksgiving, Jim and Maddie came out. They flew to Hawaii. That was the first time that they saw Bryce since the accident. And I remember on my public Facebook page saying, I'm so glad we're going to be a family again, family of 4. It's going to be so great. God bless America. And behind the scenes, it was like Dad and Maddie weren't even speaking to each other anymore. We were fighting. It was Thanksgiving. I couldn't wait for them to just get back on the plane and go, because it was so much pain and so awful, and it was just super hard, horrible. Soon after that, then Bryce and I flew to Virginia to a polytrauma. The military has these 5 polytraumas around the U.S., and they find one that's the closest to where your home is. So here's Bryce in a coma, and they get him right up. Like his first day there, he was in intensive care. The second day, they moved him to a room and sat him up on the side of the bed. Of course, he couldn't sit up by himself, but they'd hold him up. They even have machines that they strap you in to make him jog. They do all these things to maybe trigger the brain, to maybe have a memory to come back. They knew he wasn't awake, but they pretended and act as if. They would come in and talk to him. We're going to give you this now, Bryce, and we're going to do just as if he was wide awake, making his own choices and decisions. We tried for 6.5 months to wake Bryce up, but he died anyway. As a family, we knew that he would hate this. He would hate it. We were discussing our divorce. He was done. I was done. Bryce was dying. Everything was just pretty much ruined for our family, the way we could both see it. And that's when I said to him, if I ever remarried again, I would pick you. It didn't take long, just a couple minutes. We were right next door, renewing our marriage vows. So when we went back to the hospital, I got on Bryce's right side and Jim got on his left side. And I told him, I said, Bryce, your brain is broken, your body's broken, but there's nothing wrong with your spirit, and you need to listen to me. I said, me and Dad, we're not going to get divorced, Bryce. You're going to die, and it's okay. We're going to see you again. We held his hands, and the next day at 4:40, Bryce died, with both of us holding his hands. When Jim got him ready, and then they took him to a funeral home in Virginia, then they had to fly him to Charlotte. He came down the luggage rack at the Charlotte airport. If he would have been killed in action, he would have had a very honorable flight in. But since it was an accident, they just put him on U.S. Air and brought him home down the luggage rack. The Air Force still came, the local Air Force base came, and they stood and saluted, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm not complaining about it, but just to see your son, I can't get that out of my head, that he came down the luggage rack. We had open casket Friday. Saturday was his funeral. Sunday was Mother's Day. Monday was his funeral at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. And then we took him to Arlington, or they drove him to Arlington. I just remember thinking that life was just wrecked and ruined. Even with being able to stay married, like I just felt like life was permanently wrecked. All these years later, I can't answer the phone. I turned the ringers off in our house because when the phone rang, I would just panic. And I thought that would pass. Till finally, one day, I just turned the ringers off. This kind of trauma does things that like permanently change you. That's what I've found. Not sure if every part of me is going to be fixed, but it is great to have found a way to do something really good with all, I have all that pain inside of me. This running helps me deal with that pain and turn it into something good. I could have either stayed in a very bad place and felt sorry for myself forever, or this. And this is so much better. I received so much healing, and along that journey, I told my husband, I said, I'm actually starting to wake up happy. Like, I never thought that could happen. I thought I was too late, but I'm still here and I'm doing okay. And then I started doing great. And now I want to go help everybody else who might still be stuck in a bad place and let them know that if no credentials, no college, nothing, and if I could do it, anybody could do it, and just share my hope.
Hi, I'm Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Powers. This is my 4th year in ROTC. I'm this year's group commander. For those of y'all that know me, ROTC has really changed. It's probably had been the best 4 years of my life. Started from my freshman year, I got in a lot of trouble, suspended a lot, and just in ROTC, everything's changed. You've always got people there for you, and I'm grateful for everyone there. Just everything that happens is real great. Drills always something that'll keep you out of trouble. A lot of time spent doing that, just a lot of good things happening, and I just want to say goodbye to everybody who's not going to be there anymore.